So you don't know any 28-year-olds who are like, yeah, Iran's nuclear program is the biggest threat we face, and we need to effect regime change if necessary.
Absolutely not. No, 28-year-olds are pissed. Our country funded that war in Ukraine, funded it. And our military leaders ran that war.
Marjorie Taylor Greene was recently on Tucker Carlson's podcast talking about the truth about U.S. war propaganda, both in regard to Ukraine and Israel, and in its relation to the recent war in Iran. What congressional leaders do to convince representatives to vote for it, what threats they use against those who oppose it. So let's get her take on that. Let's watch and let's react. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
What about the guy who showed up in a foreign military uniform?
Zelensky.
Well, there's that. Well, yeah, they worship. But by the way, I just want to be clear. It's not just Israel that they worship. They also worship Zelensky.
Oh, they worship him. Oh, my goodness. They worship him.
Well, that's a clear.
But you should see the propaganda. I could go for days on that one. I went hard against that war. That war started, and it wasn't a month after that war started. And we had Ukrainian soldiers in their uniforms, injured Ukrainian soldiers on crutches.
Tight-fitting uniforms, because a lot of this is...
Limping through the halls of Congress, going and visiting our offices, begging for help. We need help. Hitler is going to come and take our country and steamroll across Europe.
And how ironic is that the Azov regiment exists and it's literal neo-Nazis, and that's part of Ukraine's military. Look, congressional leaders wore Ukraine flag lapels instead of the American flag, like consciously prioritizing Ukraine over the United States. There was that photo op where Pelosi draped the Ukrainian flag behind the congressional podium as Zelensky spoke. You got a bigger reception than presidents do. This is crazy propaganda that they've sold for ages. They've likened Zelensky to George Washington. They've called him a hero, despite the fact that, he shut down Eastern Orthodox churches, banned political opposition, expanded conscription laws to pluck 50-year-olds off the street to serve in this perilous war, shut down oppositional media, and is not even allowing elections to take place during a war. Like, this is ludicrous. There really is a lot of propaganda, and she's totally right.
Vladimir Putin. But that was the thing.
Yeah.
But so we get, the propaganda that comes through the halls of Congress is incredible. It's incredible.
But do you ever sit in the, in the House and ever have someone say, we're voting on our 22nd Israel resolution? Like, this is a lot, actually.
I did, finally.
But does anybody ever say, again? Like,
no.
We have a country too. 350 million people live here. No one ever says that.
No.
So Nancy Mace is like, she's just excited to vote for another.
Yes.
So it's not just, everyone talks about AIPAC. I've already said I think they should register under FARA. It's a foreign lobby.
It's common sense.
Not attacking them.
It's not even saying anything bad about them. They just should be registered.
It's insulting, of
and
course,
they can continue
that everyone's afraid to say that. You shouldn't be afraid.
No.
But it's not just, there's something, like, what is this? This, I think, is the weirdest thing. Brian Mast shows up in an IDF uniform.
It really is ludicrous. The war regime controls so much of the lobbying base of the United States, the military-industrial complex. It's not constituents that actually have power over their elected officials anymore. It's Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and Boeing. And when it comes to the banks, it's JP Morgan and Bank of America. And it's AIPAC and the Israel lobby when it comes from that direction. They're all tied together in the same mad empire-building projects that have really taken down the United States, lost us credibility in the world, extended the military way too far, contracted incredible debt. We have $37 trillion of debt right now. And the inflation that's taken hold, especially since 2020 and the CARES Act and the subsequent military misadventures and allocations from that, we've given Ukraine $200 billion. And it's just nonsensical. You can't defend it. Constituents aren't calling for it. Not actual individual American constituents. Very few. Some of them are won over by the propaganda, but the actual constituencies of these legislators are the military-industrial complex. So it's so good to see Marjorie Taylor Greene call that out for what it is. I'm very impressed with her appearance here. And from other clips, she's just as good from this podcast. So props. This is great to hear from someone other than Thomas Massey for once.
in the Congress? I don't know Brian Mast. I'm sure he's a delightful person, but like,
He's not.
are you allowed to show up in a foreign military uniform in the?
You know why Brian Mast isn't a great individual? He said that there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian, and I don't think he's deleted that tweet, by the way. And that's just in, the same vein as Moshe Feiglin, the former Knesset legislator in Israel, who said that every Palestinian child is the enemy. This is a pernicious and vile cause. And for the U.S. to be funding it is just atrocious.
Congress?
I don't think it's I don't. It's like waving a foreign flag on the floor.
But they're all over the place.
But he served over there in the IDF. Yeah.
How can an American serve in a foreign military and keep his citizenship?
I have no idea. It's the same thing as how can foreign-born people serve and be members of Congress?
Well, there's lots of dual citizens in Congress. They don't have to reveal that by law. Massey proposed a law where they would have to reveal that. To be a legislator, you'd have to say which countries you're a citizen of, because there's a lot of dual citizens, including citizens of Israel. Well, if your loyalties are torn between two countries, which do you prioritize? Can you really be beholden to the interests of both countries simultaneously? I don't think you can. So I would have supported Massey's legislation. I don't think that's going to go over well with the Israel lobby either, though.
I don't understand how
but
that
serving
happens.
in a foreign military, that's pretty serious.
Yes. You swear an oath and you swear your allegiance to fight and die for that country. You're saying, I'm willing to die for this country, but then you can serve in our country's Congress.
But how can you remain a citizen? If I go and serve in the Russian army, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, just imagine that. If there were open dual citizens of Russia and the United States, they would immediately be called a pro-Putin asset. A KGB agent, a Putin stooge, just a homicidal maniac, a duplicitous traitor. Goes on and on. That's what would be the case. But when there's dual citizens of the United States and Israel in our Congress, not a peep. And that actually is true. I think some have revealed it, but it's widely known that that happens. And, Massey's law would expose that. That's what we need to see, because you swear an oath to defend and protect the Constitution when you're a legislator. And other countries have constitutions that, if you're a citizen, that you swear an oath by that constitution. Well, what about when they come into conflict? You can't truly serve two masters, and that is just completely evident.
I have no plans to.
Right,
I'm not Russian.
No.
I don't want to. But if I did, I think people would say fairly, like, how can you be an American? Don't you forfeit your citizenship by doing that?
People would say, yeah, they definitely would come.
Well, of course I'd go to jail for it.
Yeah.
But,
the New York Post mocked me and called me Moscow Marjorie and put it on their front page
There you go.
because I didn't want to vote to fund Ukraine. So clearly,
There it
Moscow Marjorie.
yeah, Moscow Marjorie. Yeah.
Funny, the New York any Murdoch publication is just agnostic on most things, but really pro-war.
Oh, they love war.
Yeah.
Well,
It's the only thing. Tucker's talked about it before, is like that was the mandate from Fox News. You could talk about almost anything in any other topic, but when it comes to wars, you better be careful. And that's what got him fired. They didn't want him, poking around the Biden laptop story and things like that. They're too in the bag for the Ukraine lobby. And that's the truth. I'm so glad that Marjorie Taylor Greene laughs about it, because that is what the proper response is. Laugh at these people and how absurd it is. Make them try to prove that you're a Russian asset. It's so stupid. It's not even creative anymore. It's just NPC lingo at this point.
they love it. It helps their ratings. It keeps all the baby boomers glued to the television.
Yeah.
24 hours a day because they're terrified that bombs are going to fall on America. Something terrible is going to happen. You have to keep up with it. The funniest thing to me, Tucker, was how come, okay, look, our country funded that war in Ukraine, funded it. And our military leaders ran that war. They have been all about that war. We fund their government. We fund their retirement. We have funded their small businesses. The American people tragically have kept Ukraine afloat. But how come we couldn't watch that war on television? And I say that sarcastically because I think it's ridiculous. We could watch the Israel and Iran launching bombs at each other and exploding in their cities and people's reactions and the nonstop commentary and counting missiles and how many missiles they shot down. But we never saw that with Ukraine and Russia.
And just one caveat, we only saw the missiles that were response from Iran into Israel. We didn't see Israel missiles go into Tehran and take out those residential complexes as the first preemptive unprovoked attack. We only saw the reprisal missiles from Iran into Israel. I think you have to ask yourself, why is that? I think the answer is pretty clear. It's the command of the Israel lobby, and she's totally right. We've had even more selective coverage of the Ukraine war, to be sure.
And I want to know why. Why didn't we see that?
Well, now we don't see it. I asked a bunch of members of Congress, including the Speaker of the House, disgraceful person, in my opinion, Mike Johnson, but, so you funded this war with billions of our dollars. We're bankrupt, but you're paying for this war because you love the Ukrainians so much. How many Ukrainians have died? No clue. Not interested. They're not interested. Really, you're funding the war because you love the Ukrainians, but you're not even keeping track of how many of its young men have died.
And by the way, it's like 1 million to 1.3 million by some estimates. Estimates differ on this. It's hard to be sure, but he's right that they never bring this up. It's a generation of dead men over the border of the Donbass region and Russia. That's all this is. And the U.S. ploy and scam to get us to pay for it is over who controls a small region in the eastern part of Ukraine, which is culturally more pro-Russian than Ukraine proper, and we're supposed to dump our treasury into that. I'm sorry, I don't support that.
Now, middle-aged men have died.
How many fathers? How many brothers?
How many people with Down syndrome? How many Ukrainians with Down syndrome were pulled off the street and sent to go die in a war that you were paying for? They don't care.
No.
That's when I thought, I'm kind of out.
Oh, totally out on that. But it's an interesting comparison. Why can you watch one on TV and you can't watch the other one on TV? And I don't know the answer to that.
Well, you should be able to watch whatever you want on TV, right?
Supposedly.
Pull up pornography on your iPhone. You probably should be able to watch a war that you're paying for.
Right. But isn't that just like, Why is that?
I think it's the Israel lobby. They're going to make sure we see every image of missiles going into Israel, but not the ones that inspired that response. I think that's the more likely answer. And we don't see those kind of images in Gaza, of course. That only comes out through TikTok, which, by the way, they wanted to ban for that reason, too.
Why do Americans have to be shown that Israel is about to be annihilated? And what are the consequences of that to America if Israel is annihilated? Wait, let's say it like this. Nuclear-armed Israel. Why do we have to be shown on TV 24 hours a day nuclear-armed Israel being bombed and attacked? And why do we have to be fed that when we're not fed that about any other war anywhere else?
We're being manipulated. That's why.
Yes.
Why all the flags, the foreign flags in the Congress? I was just up there last week, and every member has a foreign flag. Not every member, but a lot of them, the Republicans, all have Israeli flags, which I personally think is a beautiful flag. I'm not opposed to the flag.
No.
But when I was a kid, I went to Congress when I was a kid. There are no foreign flags. It's the United States Capitol. It's the capital of our country.
It's the capital of the United States of America.
What do you have one? A foreign flag?
My job title is representative.
Right.
I don't wear foreign flags.
But imagine if she did. Everything that they say about her in terms of the whole Moscow Marjorie thing is total projection. It's not like she has a Russian flag in her office. But guess what? A heck of a lot of them have Israeli flags in their office. I bet some of them have Ukrainian flags too. But that's not duplicitous. That's not traitorous to the corporate media.
I wear the American flag.
So, but you're one of the only ones who doesn't wear a foreign flag.
Not many don't wear foreign flags. Yes, that's correct.
Think about this. This is the United States legislature. This is Congress. Not many of them don't wear foreign flags. Just think about that. Let that sink in for a second. We are under control of foreign influences. We're an occupied country. There's no other way to say it. This is just abhorrent. And then they have the gall to speak about the threat of globalism, some of them, by the way. After all this, it's just preposterous. It's almost comical if it weren't so sad.
Correct. Or no, they'll wear a pin that will have the American flag and the Israel flag together. And there's also pins that have the American flag and the Ukraine flag together. And then
Are they the same country?
No.
Okay.
Contrary to what some people may believe.
Yeah, a lot of people act and believe as if Israel's the 51st state and Ukraine's the 52nd state. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So does anyone ever talk about this?
No. It is widely accepted. It's an everyday part of people's attire. And then Democrats will wear many foreign flags. I mean, they've gone through Gaza, they've gone through Mexico, they've got Iran.
Mexico?
Yeah. Well,
Mexico?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, yeah, look at the flags that were waving in LA just a week or two ago. I mean, I guess that's not as surprising as some people might think.
Boy, I think Mexico hates us much more than Iran does.
You know what?
I grew up next to Mexico. They don't like, I like a lot of Mexicans personally.
I got to
but-
tell you, I was in Mexico last weekend and it was great.
Oh, no. Well, Mexicans are great people.
Mexicans are great people.
I could not agree more.
And the area I was in was gorgeous.
No, I'm saying the Mexican government.
Oh, the Mexican government. Yeah, enough of that.
Yeah, isn't it a common trope to realize, and this is like a mass awakening, that most people throughout the world are good people, and most governments throughout the world are bad governments? That just seems to be a fact of life almost no matter where you are.
But no, the people there, oh my goodness, wonderful
I
people.
agree.
They're bilingual. Their English is perfect. And it's not because they were in the United States. It's because they learn English and Spanish in their schools as they're growing up.
Sure.
The customer service was the best customer service I have had in decades. And customer service is one of the things I'm really picky about because I grew up in a construction company and my dad's number one rule was customer is king. And so you treat the customer as they are the king. And that is how we will survive. That's how we will make money is we treat our customers better than anybody. And so it's a little thing I pay attention to.
It's a big thing.
I was blown away. I was like, everybody's saying hello to me every single day. They're asking me if I need anything. I mean, like everybody I walk by and I'm going, wait, this isn't what I was told about Mexico.
No, I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of Americans living in Mexico.
Oh, yeah, they love it.
No, of course they
But
can.
I don't
They
get
can't
treated-
afford to live in the United States.
But we don't have that kind of customer service in the United States.
No, we definitely don't.
And we don't have that kind of mentality in our government.
No, I know.
No, because it's government. This is not the markets. In a free market, there would be the impetus to sell things to people that's based upon their satisfaction. If you don't satisfy the customer, they'll just go to another entity that does satisfy the customer. But with government, you don't have any choice. You're coerced to support it through taxation. So that same mentality that exists in private life doesn't exist in government life, clearly. And war is not what Americans are asking for now, by the way. They're not satisfied by these wars. It only satisfies the Israel lobby, the military-industrial complex, and the banks. What do you know?
So we have, everyone I work with is going from dinner or cocktail hour to some lobbying group, to some special interest group. They're invited to speak, so they feel honored to speak at these groups. And it's every single night or a lunch or a breakfast in Washington, D.C., and they're going and doing all these things, and then they're wearing their lapel pins or their little pocket handkerchiefs or whatever it may be, representing foreign countries or tying them to the United States as if you could tie a foreign government to our government. That's ridiculous. And it's widely accepted and it's common practice and no one ever questions it.
Yeah, why don't they just be real with us and just try to annex Ukraine? That would at least be being real with us instead of duping us into believe that this is somehow in U.S. interests. Just try to add them as a state. And I know what I'm talking about because they'll probably try at some point now. But yeah, I mean, the duplicity is off the charts. The dishonesty is just atrocious. And a lot of our legislators have more loyalties to foreign countries than their own backyards and their own communities. It's crazy, but that's where we're at right now.
So now you are questioning it without hate, I think.
Oh.
And you said like 5 times you're not mad at Israel. You're mad at American leaders who refuse to put their own country first, which I think is fair.
Right.
But, I mean, you're going to get crushed for saying this.
Probably.
What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I don't know, but I'm sure they're going to try to find a primary against me.
Yeah.
That won't say the things that I say.
Yes.
And they're going to try to say that I'm betraying Trump when I'm not at all. I have spent millions of my own dollars campaigning for that man all over the country, like freely, just going.
Weren't you just with him the other day?
Yes.
I saw you with him somewhere.
At the White House.
Yeah.
Like you cannot make me not love. I love him. I think he's great and I support him. And I think he did a great job. I think it was incredible that our military was so well trained, the strikes that they made, and then President Trump said enough, and he backed out of it.
Okay, she's way more charitable on Trump than I would be. He rolled the dice with American lives because we had to rely on Iranian restraint, lest that regime change may actually have been launched and executed. I think it was on the table. He tweeted about it, but because the Iranian regime acted completely opposed and contradictory to what the neocons were saying, that, those death to America chants, they were going to wipe Israel off the map and do as many damage to U.S. troops, kill as many U.S. soldiers as possible. Because they didn't do that, it gave an off-ramp. But man, did that risk everything. And now they're just encouraged to seek a nuclear weapon, if not fast-track it tomorrow anyways. And the U.S. tanked their own foreign policy objectives to negotiate with them, just to rely and collaborate with Netanyahu on this mad project. And it's not like we're going to be more trusted by other countries we're negotiating with right now, like, say, Russia maybe. So, yeah, I'm not as charitable as her on this whatsoever.
No other president would have done that. And the Congress is upset that he backed out. And Mark Levin's head is going to explode.
Well, actually,
on his
I have
show.
the quote, and I hate to beat up on
It is
Mark Levin. He's
exploding.
got enough problems, obviously. But so the moment the ceasefire happened, he said this: "I hate this word ceasefire. I really do." So how could, that's so, I do think it, your worldview, what you're like as a person, what you love, what you hate, like that, it is important. And if you hate the word ceasefire, I hate the word like dead children or killing.
Yeah.
But ceasefire, that's the word you hate?
Yeah, this guy's a vile human being, Mark Levin. And John Bolton is melting down over this on Twitter, too, as if, neocons weren't already so discredited that they have to go out there and profess how aligned they are with killing multitudes for fruitless occupations and regime change. It's astounding. But I do think that Marjorie Taylor Greene was right, that they're going to throw primary challenges to her, just like they're doing with Massey. They're giving Massey the full treatment. You already see the commercials out right now calling him a betrayer, despite the fact he's one of the only ones saying, hey, we didn't get these Doge cuts and you guys aren't prioritizing those. And hey, we ridiculed Biden for striking Iran without congressional license, but then you just did that now. He's holding them all to the same standard, and for that, he's getting primaried. And I think it'll fail again, as it has the last time. AIPAC threw $400,000 at trying to defeat him, and they couldn't. And Marjorie Taylor Greene might get dragged, too. I don't know if Trump is going to tweet against Marjorie Taylor Greene like he did Massey, but I guess we'll see. You never know when you go against some of this stuff.
Haven't you... wow, that's
right.
A heavy thing to say.
Yeah, so Mark Levin that is attacking you every hour on his X account
I don't care.
and attacking me and calling me names. And Fox News is tolerating that, by the way.
Of course.
Which is, I think, atrocious and pathetic. Any other company, by the way, any other company would never allow their employees to go on their own personal social media and like verbally berate and attack and call names to people. That's a fireable offense in the real world and in the private sector. No company allows their employees to do that. Fox News is allowing Mark Levin.
Well, you can't fire Mark Levin. He's got such a huge audience. Oh, wait, no. Nobody voluntarily watches Mark Levin.
Yeah, few do. Fox News did much to popularize neoconservatism for sure, and the absurdly backward foreign policy that they represent. But Mark Levin is not being listened to by many Americans anymore. He does have a radio program, and he got elected to that Homeland Security Conference in April. Think about that. Trump campaigned opposing the neocons like Liz Cheney, like specifically calling her out. And then he gets elected, and one of the first things he does is appoint Mark Levin to a Homeland Security committee. Actually, not one of the first things, but he did that. So, that's where we're at right now.
Of course.
I don't know anybody that watches Mark Levin. I'm sure someone watches it, but he's the great one, apparently. Yeah. But no, seriously though, it's the fact that he hates the word ceasefire is an attack on the president. That's a real attack on the president. Not the words that I'm saying, not anything that I've said, not when I said we shouldn't be doing this. That wasn't an attack on the president. That's going exactly with what President Trump campaigned on.
Yeah, that's true, but that's not what he did when it came to his decision making. This is where Massey's better than MTG. He's willing to say flat out, Trump was wrong with this strike. MTG isn't going that far. And again, I commend her for everything else she's saying. A lot of this is very courageous, but this is where Massey is better than Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Now, what Mark Levin is saying, that he hates the word ceasefire, that is his attack on President Trump. That's him putting the ultimate disapproval, hate on what President Trump has done and that we are all so thankful and happy for. Peace is the ultimate thing that we should pursue at all times. Peace at all times, because it's good for every country and every single people. But Mark Levin hates it.
Well, peace is also the purest expression of strength. And I'm not, resurrecting the hoariest quote of all, peace through strength from Reagan, which, there's truth in that. But peace is a byproduct of strength. When you have a strong father in the home, you've got strong parents, the kids get along. Mm-hmm. You got some, flaky Xanax head running the house.
Yeah.
The kids are out of control. There's chaos, there's fighting.
That's right.
Like, strength brings peace.
Yeah.
Dad's home. Knock that shit off.
We love that.
Yeah, but that's
it's
just
true.
That's a
yes.
principle that never changes.
Yeah, I mostly agree with this, and I don't have a problem with that allegory, peace through strength, if it's applied in the right context. He mentioned Reagan, but Reagan said peace through strength, but then he negotiated with the head of the state that he called the evil empire, by the way, for the pursuit of peace, which ultimately he got. One of the greatest accomplishments of the 20th century was the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And he got that not through war, not through preemptive strikes, not through striking nuclear facilities, not for bankrolling a foreign country like Israel. He got it through negotiation. And because, Gorbachev was open to it, there were reforms being laid. And, we could learn a lot from that, but no one does. Not today's Republican Party. They say peace through strength means empire building and bombing, every country throughout all corners of the world to further the interests of the military-industrial complex and Israel lobby.
Right.
And so it's just funny that there are people, I just can't get past it. I think it's important to say it because, you want your country to be good. You want its leaders to be good. You don't always have to agree with them. Mm-hmm. But if their main goal is to kill people, if they don't have any problem watching Randy Fine, who's a member of Congress, I guess, from Florida.
Barely got elected, by the way, in a very red district.
In a very red district.
Very red district.
But Randy Fine, someone sent him, this is when I got off social media. I'm not looking at it anymore because it's disgusting. But somebody sent him a picture of literally of a dead child. And he's like, that's great.
Oh my goodness, that's the most horrible thing ever.
But how could someone like that serve in the Congress?
I have no idea.
Yeah, to be clear, what this was, and I saw the tweet, is someone produced a dead child of a Palestinian baby, essentially embedded in rubble, clearly dead, being pulled out of it. I hate even, describing this because it was so sickening. And they said, look at this, how can you sleep at night? And he responded, quite well, actually. Thanks for asking. Think about that. That's an elected official is saying that. This is, people that cast votes on behalf of our government. This is just utterly ghastly. It can't be defended. It's totally indefensible.
They shouldn't be in
What
Congress.
God is he worshiping? He's
not
constantly
mine.
talking about God.
Not my God.
What
not
God
your God
wants that?
Nope. Nobody. No God. Well, there is no God but God, and our God does not want anyone to celebrate a dead child.
That's right.
So if I'm whatever that guy's name is, Mike Johnson, running, the Republican, Speaker of the House, I'm calling Randy Fine and being, hey, son, no. You're not allowed to celebrate dead children on your Twitter. Like, you're a member of the Republican Party in the Congress. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah, no.
Did that happen?
I don't know.
Did any other, I'm sorry to be mean or so personal. I tried to interview Randy Fine. He canceled on me, but it would have been interesting.
There were reports, by the way, that he canceled on him because, some of the top neocon influencers didn't think he was ready to debate Tucker, especially after what happened with Ted Cruz. And guess what? I can't blame him, because that guy is not even remotely as smart as Ted Cruz, who is about the best they had, and he got destroyed by Tucker on these questions. And he came off looking real bad over that. But yeah, Mike Johnson's not going to call you and be like, don't talk bad about Palestinian children. He'll only call you if you don't vote to fund the war in Ukraine and money for Israel and the latest CR and the big beautiful bill. That's when he'll call you, not when you do stuff like that, clearly.
But I think
I don't be mean, but like, what do you even...
He should answer to his district for that.
I agree.
I have to answer to my district for everything I do and say.
But did other Republicans say, wow, this guy is one of us. He's part of the conference or whatever they call it. Conference, yeah. He's a Republican, a fellow Republican in the House, and he's celebrating dead children. Did anybody say, like, that's not...
I didn't hear anybody say that.
If someone put a swastika on their Twitter feed...
Oh, my goodness.
Well, and they should. I'm opposed, for the record, I'm opposed to the swastika.
Wait, let me say, for the record, I'm opposed to the swastika,
Of course, but if you put a symbol of, like, hate and violence and killing children on your Twitter feed...
Unacceptable.
The people who run your party would say something about it, right?
Oh, well, I got kicked out of... I got totally removed from all committees for things that I had put on social media or shared before I ever became a member of Congress.
But you weren't espousing violence, were you?
No, I was not espousing any type of violence.
I saw that and I was like, I don't have any choice but to vote Republican, I guess. I don't know who else I would vote for.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people were in that position, even a lot of dissidents, and I think a lot of them are having second thoughts about that, second guessing that. I'm not here to condemn anyone's choice. I didn't vote for either candidate in this election, and I don't feel complicit in it, and I wouldn't even if I did. I mean, our system is determined through the Electoral College and not popular votes anyway. So, but yeah, a lot of people were in that position. It's hard to deny the impulse to do that, especially when prominent Democrats were openly talking about censoring dissident voices on the internet and things like that. So, but that is a lot of where people are right now.
Maybe I just won't vote, but I'm not going to vote for a party that is for killing children.
No, 100%. That's not what
how could I do that?
You shouldn't.
Well, I hate to say that's both parties right now. Both of the two biggest parties anyways, for sure. I don't think the Green Party is or the Libertarian Party is, but, good luck convincing people to vote for them as well, in the current context, especially given their recent presidential nominee. And, that's where we're at.
I don't think anyone should.
Did anyone talk about that in the hallways? Like,
no,
Randy Fine's
I hadn't heard about it.
Nutcase.
You're the only person I've heard talk about it.
Really?
Yes. Honestly.
Nancy Mace didn't notice that her fellow Republican, Randy Fine, was putting I love killing babies?
I don't think so.
What about?
And just to be fair, Randy Fine didn't say that. Tucker's interpreting it that way, and it's hard not to. I'm not trying to defend Randy Fine in any way, but he just said he'd sleep soundly, knowing what he saw, which was a dead Palestinian baby. And I hate even to talk about this, but that is, is about as dreadful as I've seen any U.S. congressman say something about anyone or any dead child. It's just like I just can't even put this into words. It's so sick.
But all the pro-lifers, supposed pro-lifers, I believe in babies.
I believe the pro-life groups would be pretty upset about that.
The real ones.
But how many followers? Does anybody even know he posted it?
And on Friday, the bombing started. Israel started bombing.
Yeah, as far as that, you can say that kind of stuff about dead Palestinian babies. Then if you're a Republican, the next day you can probably speak at a pro-life rally. That's probably, one of the sickest truths about this thing. Never seeing the disconnect or contradiction that lies within that whole scenario. That is sickening, but that's the truth. They don't see how it's not pro-life to, support this madness. It's crazy. In Gaza, particularly.
They didn't ask. They just announced that they were doing it, and they did it, and derailed the talks, of course. But why the urgency? And someone said to me the other day, it has to do with the polling on this question. And the only people who support this kind of lunacy are in Mark Levin's age demographic. Like, it's older people, young
Our
people.
parents' generation, the baby boomers.
I hate to say that. Everyone beats up on the boomers, but it's well-deserved, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Really selfish generation in general. But do you sense that like anyone under 40 is for this stuff?
Oh my gosh, no. Baby boomers primarily get their news from television.
Yes.
The Republican baby boomers watch Fox News. The Democrat baby boomers, they watch CNN.
Yes.
Or MSNBC or whatever. That's where they get their news, and that's where they receive all the propaganda fed into their head.
Yes.
Yeah.
About what they should think, what they should believe, who they should support, how they should vote, when they should protest, who they need to be mad at. It's all there on television for them.
Yeah, this is so true. There really is a generational breakdown on this. If you look at polling numbers about who consumes what type of news, it is the boomers and the old people that are still consuming cable news. And the cable news industry is still dying. Don't get me wrong. It's on its dying breath. It's in its death throes. And that's a good thing because of the rise of the independent media. A lot of people have had enough, but it is generational, and it's probably going to take another generation to completely die off. But even compared to 10 years ago, we are living in a different world where they could just stick Russiagate hoax out there all day, every day, and get people in vast swaths to believe that. Now I don't think you're going to get a lot of Americans to believe that. And, I think that's the best cultural phenomenon to come from this last few years. We'll have to see where it remains, but she and he are both right about this, is that is where they get a lot of their news. And it's not really surprising where they come down on the issues because of it, especially on war.
But so I'm 51 years old. I'm Generation X.
Right.
So then there's the millennials, and then there's Gen Z. That's our kids. Everybody from my age down is like, enough of this crap. Everybody my age down is sick of it. They're fed up, but they don't watch TV. They don't have the TV on in the living room 24 hours a day and fall asleep to it while they're
So you don't know any 28-year-olds who are like, yeah, Ron's nuclear program is the biggest threat we face, and we need to affect regime change if necessary.
Absolutely not. No, 28-year-olds are pissed, and they're lost.
Yeah.
And they're defeated. And they don't know who to turn to fix these problems.
Yeah.
And they're facing problems we never faced. And so, no, the 28-year-olds are like, oh, great. Now I've got to worry about this too. Like, what does that mean? Am I going to be drafted? What does that mean? They don't want to have anything to do with it.
No, it's totally true.
It's insane. And so think about it like this. Tucker, in the next 10 years, or maybe a little bit longer, our parents' generation is going to pass away. And by the time that entire generation has moved on, and the bulk of it, sadly, has passed, because that's my mom and was my dad. And when they're gone, and that mentality and those decisions made in Washington based on all of this neocon and fighting for foreign countries and fighting the foreign causes and sending the foreign aid and all of this foreign garbage, once they're gone, we're going to be decimated and desolate because we will have never poured back into our own country.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. The inheritance that's left for us after all this debt and inflation and empire building, hopefully that changes course in some regard, generationally, through demographics. Who knows? I like to think that the greatest impetus for that will be the rise of the independent media to actually provide more legitimate, true voices against this madness. But who knows? We'll have to see how that turns out.
And then we're going to have our generation of kids who at that time are going to be like in their 30s. And it's going to be really hard for them.
No, I totally agree.
And so that generation will be gone, and Mark Levin won't get to put his opinion on anybody.
No.
And it won't matter anymore. And I don't even know if people will watch TV anymore. Who
No, of
knows?
course not.
No, they're going to be sick of it.
I hope not.
I mean, I think they're already sick of it. People are checking out.
We're going to get radical politics.
But I think it's going to be before 10 years.
Interesting. I guess we'll have to see when it comes to that. But look, Marjorie Taylor Greene showed some true bravery here. This was bold. This went against the prevailing Republican notions, even against much of the MAGA coalition that brought Trump to power. And she is a big fan of Trump. She's being a lot more charitable to Trump than I would be, and that Massey would be. And, you know, I guess that's understandable to some degree. She doesn't want to be targeted as much as Massey, perhaps, but I don't agree with her on how completely the Iran situation was handled, especially when you compare Republican rhetoric under Biden and Obama to that. And the same goes for Republicans. When they're out of office, they're really good in terms of the anti-war rhetoric generally. At least they were more so with Obama and Biden, for sure. So we'll have to see how this pans out. I think she's absolutely right at pinpointing a lot of the problems that we have in empire building. Is a lot of the stuff starts with war propaganda. So the truth about American war propaganda is that the regime knows that they can't just sell these wars without doing any work on their own to do so through a massive marketing campaign like they did for this war in Ukraine and all of Israel's wars, and bankrolling the war in Gaza, which they basically don't even talk about. But all Americans know that's happening, that pay attention to this at least. Some of them have checked out and don't, pay attention to it. But it's not the concern of the average American to dump so much of the U.S. Treasury overseas to the detriment of our domestic affairs. And regardless of what you think about domestic affairs, I bet there's lots of people watching this that have very different beliefs about economics and domestic affairs and how to handle their communities, where to allocate money, etc. But I hope that most people watching this can all unite on the fact that the best place is not to dump it overseas. I think that my audience would generally agree on that. And I know that dissidents on both the right and the left, and radical libertarians and Greens and, socialists that agree with me on this do watch this show. And hey, hopefully we're all united in that cause. But cheers to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Some very impressive things said here that will ruffle some feathers. I think she's going to be the one getting the call from Mike Johnson, not Randy Fine after that tweet. She's going to get calls from Mike Johnson after this appearance, and hey, tip of the hat to her for that. But let me know what you think. Do you think she was right down below? Do you think war propaganda is what launches these crazy wars? Any angle that you think I missed, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to Tucker. His show's great. Like the video. Subscribe to my channel. And if you would be so kind, please consider supporting me as a YouTube member or Patreon patron to support my work, support the channel, and I'd really appreciate that and bow to you if you so indulge me. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.